Hi, and welcome to day number 9 in our 21 Days with Jesus. We're looking in the Gospel of John, and each chapter is a different day, and we're just kind of uncovering who Jesus is by one of his closest associates, the Apostle John. And John recollects some of the things that he remembered about what Jesus said and did. So thanks for continuing on with me in this journey. And we're on day 9, John chapter 9. And the whole chapter is about Jesus healing a blind man. And sight is one of our greatest, things that we have, to be able to see, one of our senses, and to be able to see things, the beauty, to be able to sense where we're at. And I know some people that were blind. I went to college with a guy that was blind, and when he would have to call the pastor to ask him what verse he was preaching on, because his Braille Bible was in 6 gigantic volumes. And when he would find out what it is, the New Testament was in 2 volumes. And it would be as big as a big notebook. And so he would carry that around. And sight is so important. And Jesus met a man that was born blind, and Jesus healed him. In the Old Testament, we don't find anybody that was blind that was healed. And in fact, this is something that Jesus did that no other man had ever done, that we have at least recorded. And he was proving again that he was God. The problem is the people that were watching Jesus didn't have a God box that they could fit Jesus in. They had this preconceived idea of what God was like, and Jesus didn't fit that mold. In fact, in John chapter 9, it says in verse 16, "Therefore said some of the Pharisees, 'This man is not of God, because he keeps not the Sabbath day.' And others said, 'How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles?'" Now, Jesus healed on the Sabbath, the holy day, the day of rest. Jesus did something that you weren't supposed to do anything on, and they couldn't figure out why this was going on. Jesus didn't fit in their little box. And there's great conversations that they have and everything as you go down. I love what it says in verse 22 when he talked to his parents. "If any man confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue." They hated Jesus so much that if somebody said he was from God, they kicked him out of church. They kicked him out of their group. And don't we have that now? The whole cancel culture. If you don't agree with what I think, with what I say, with my stand, with my viewpoint, I'm just going to, I've even had people say, "Here's where I stand. If you don't agree with me, you're not my friend on Facebook." I don't know about you, but that's pretty narrow-minded. And Jesus does not fit in our box. And maybe you're here and Jesus has done something, or you see Jesus, and he doesn't fit in your preconceived idea of what God is like. Be very careful that you're not creating a God in your own image, the kind of God that you would want to have. Have you ever heard somebody say this? "Well, my God wouldn't do that. The God I understand him to be wouldn't do that." And sometimes that can be true, sometimes it's not, but we need to be careful that we don't begin to think of God and Jesus and what he ought to do. We just need to let God be God and realize we are not God. And that's who Jesus is. And he can do miracles, and he cannot do miracles. He can answer prayer, and he cannot answer prayer. He can do what we want him to, and he cannot do what we want him to, and he doesn't have to have an answer for us. He doesn't have to answer to us, but oftentimes he does. So the best thing that we can do is trust God. I love that old song we used to sing when I was a kid. "Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but trust and obey." And if we do that, we're going to be fine. So read John chapter 9. You will be blessed by it. And I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about